Oh, poor Ajax. It's been a really rough go for this platform, and I have to admit I've fallen into the trap of giving it a little bit more of a hard time than I think it actually deserves. I mean, it does deserve it. It did have an extremely difficult conception and still challenges to this day. But I have to admit, considering I've been recently working alongside CVRTs a lot more and playing with them, this is a massive upgrade, and I have to be a little bit more humble in the fact that the British Army is taking a huge leap off a cliff, and although they've tumbled a little way on the way down, I think they have landed somewhat on their knees, but not really standing. And that is a good thing. It doesn't need to be perfect, doesn't need to be absolutely on point having a platform that's perfectly ready. I don't think there's a single armoured program out there, particularly in the British Army, that's ever gone well, and I recently watched a video from the Bovington Tank Museum going a little bit more in depth as to how this vehicle came to be, some of its problems, and today's crew's actually talking about it. And I'd like to talk a little bit more of a revision of my own perception of this platform, because myself, I am a British Army crewman in the past. I worked on Warrior significantly, and I really do want to give Ajax the benefit of the doubt. It has been a very difficult path and journey for this platform. Now, it's very cautiously moving forward in its, development, and the Ajax of 6 armoured vehicles, including the turreted beautiful Ajax Scout variant, is really doing quite a lot in terms of a promising future. It is certainly ticking the box in a fully digitalized platform with advanced sensors, that powerful 40mm cannon, which recently going to BAE Systems I experienced the 35mm, but this is caseless telescopic, something that I'd love to learn a lot more on, so CTA, if you're around and watching this, could you please invite me to come play with some caseless telescopic ammunition? Just kidding, but in all honesty though, this is a huge leap from CVRT, and I have to give this platform a little bit more of an in-depth review. From the outset, Ajax armoured vehicle programs really struggled with serious flaws. After General Dynamics UK won the contract in 2010, the first vehicles were supposed to arrive by 2017. Instead, years of delays ensued. By late 2021, the Ministry of Defence had paid over £3 billion, but not one battle-ready Ajax had been delivered. Only a handful of test vehicles, and those could be used for training at best. So what happened? Well, for starters, soldiers testing Ajax began reporting alarming issues. Some of these soldiers who I know personally and have spoken to regarding excessive noise and vibration inside the vehicle caused crew members nausea, swollen joints, and even potential hearing loss. Trials were halted in 2020 after some crew members suffered these injuries. An independent review later found that by December 2021, over 300 personnel had been exposed to Ajax's noise and vibration issues, with a number of soldiers medically discharged due to hearing damage. Clearly something was very wrong. The problems weren't just minor teething troubles, they went to the core of the design. Reports also emerged of instability in the turret while moving, electronics getting damaged, and even hulls that didn't meet the specifications. It seemed the vehicle's advanced systems and the 38-ton chassis hadn't been properly integrated, resulting in a host of technical gremlins. In 2021, a parliamentary committee lambasted Ajax as yet another example of chronic mismanagement. A quote made by MOD Procurement. By 2022, frustration boiled over in Parliament. One former military chief, Lord West, did not mince his words, calling the Ajax program, quote, a complete and utter disaster. It has been a real shambles, unquote. Such blunt criticism from a senior figure underscored how badly Ajax's reputation had been battered. The House of Commons Public Accounts Committee even urged the Ministry of Defence to fix or fail the program, essentially to sort it out or scrap it, warning that billions had been spent with little to show, and that these failures were, quote, directly threatening the safety of our service people and the ability to meet NATO commitments, unquote. In short, by early 2022, Ajax had become the poster child for what many saw as Britain's broken military procurement system. And I won't deny it, I fell into that trap too. I really did not look at the broader picture of what this platform is trying to do in its future. It's really unfortunate that it has been jaded with such a dark history and still ongoing concerns, but I do have faith in this project. But let's continue the story. Faced with mounting pressure, the MOD and General Dynamics scrambled to the rescue for Ajax. Trials had been paused for safety, but behind the scenes a plan was actually taking shape to address the vehicle's faults. Engineers went back to the drawing board to modify parts of the design. For example, they redesigned the seat mountings and added better cushioning to reduce the vibration transfer to the crew. Controls were adjusted and software was tuned. To tackle the noise issues, crew communication gear was upgraded, testers were given noise-cancelling headphones and double-layer hearing protection, mitigating the sound levels inside the cabin. These were essentially, though, workarounds to protect soldiers' ears while deeper fixes were implemented. By mid-2022, limited user trials quietly resumed with these modifications in place. Over the next year, the vehicles underwent an extensive reliability growth trial program racking up thousands of kilometers. And in fact, by the end of 2023, Ajax variants had driven more than 20,000 kilometers across various terrains as tests continued, with actually fairly good results. Crucially, no new show-stopping flaws were emerging. In March 2023, Defence Minister Alex Chalk informed Parliament that Ajax had passed its user validation trials, essentially a series of exams to prove the fixes worked, calling this, quote, a seismic leap forward, unquote, for the programme. According to Defence News, those earlier programs, quote, appeared to be finally behind the vehicle, unquote. The reliability trials progressing without any fundamental design issues cropping up. And this was a pivotal turning point. After years of doom and gloom, officials cautiously, and very cautiously may I add, began to speak of Ajax in optimistic terms. By late 2023, the UK Ministry of Defence publicly declared that the Ajax programme had, quote, turned a corner and is progressing, unquote, towards delivering a new generation of armoured vehicles that meets the Army's needs. The tone, in all honesty, had shifted dramatically, and you're seeing a lot more of that today, even in this footage that you're seeing from the British Army's own social media. Instead of debates about cancellation, the talk was now of delivery schedules and training plans. The cold weather trials that had been postponed were rescheduled, and indeed, British crews took Ajax vehicles into the freezing far north of Sweden in early 2024 to validate the operation in extreme conditions. The trials were actually a great success, and I actually spoke to some of the members that went to that trial, and they did say that Ajax did very, very well for itself. Ajax was shown firing its 40mm cannon on the move in sub-zero minus 30 degree conditions, demonstrating the vehicle could fight effectively even in Arctic cold. Around the same time, in August 2024, the British Army conducted its first live firing on the move trial on home soil, another milestone that had been delayed for years. Live footage showed Ajax engaging targets while cruising over rough ground, a clear indication that stability and gunnery issues had been certainly somewhat tamed. For the troops finally getting to operate the vehicles, it was a huge morale boost. Now, for obvious reasons, I'm not going to disclose the names of the people who have been operating these vehicles that I know of and have spoken to personally, for very obvious reasons, but they have not lied to me, they've not beat around the bush. They do say that it still has a somewhat difficult level of concern still in certain areas, but overall they're very impressed with the vehicle considering what they were playing with before, which was the CVRT. By spring of this year, tangible progress could really be counted in the actual vehicles being delivered. The MOD confirmed that 91 Ajax vehicles had been accepted into service as of March 2025. Deliveries to frontline units have also begun, and 8 years later than originally planned, but happening at last. Soldiers of the Lancers, Queen's Royal Hussars, and others have started receiving Ajax vehicles and training on them. BFBS Forces News, reporting from the field in early 2025, noted after long delays and well-publicised problems, the Ajax noise and vibration issues have been, quote, rectified, and this ultra-modern armoured vehicle is now ready to go into service, unquote. And folks, that's really a remarkable turnaround from just a few years prior. As of mid-2025 today, the program is aiming for an initial operating capability, IOC, basically a first usable squadron of around 50 vehicles by late this year. Full operational capability for all 589 vehicles is projected before 2030. However, I'm still a little skeptical myself. And while skeptics like myself might note these dates have slipped before, the difference now is that dozens of the fully spec vehicles are already in troops' hands, and testing so far suggests no new major headaches. In short, Ajax is finally moving forward. So, with trials resumed and deliveries underway, what kind of capability will Ajax actually bring to the British Army? In essence, the Ajax is a tracked, medium-weight reconnaissance vehicle bristling with modern tech. Its primary armament is the beautiful 40mm CT-40 cannon, a new generation weapon that fires cased telescopic ammo capable of defeating armour threats of up to 2 to 3 kilometers away. For context, this gun packs a bigger punch than the 30mm cannons on the older Warrior IFV and even the German Pumas. It also has a coaxial machine gun and has been tested and integrated with anti-tank missile systems for extra firepower. But firepower is really not most of the story of this platform. Ajax is designed to excel at ISTAR, intelligence, surveillance, target acquisition, and of course, reconnaissance. It has a state-of-the-art sensor suite including long-range day and night cameras, thermal imagers, laser rangefinders, and acoustic shot detectors, all tied into a networked battlefield management system. In the Army's words, it's a high-tech sensor and battlefield networking system, and will give a world-leading ISTAR advantage, feeding data to other units and vehicles in real time, like that of the Challenger 3, the Apache Longbow, and of course the wonderful new Boxer. Crews can operate Ajax buttoned up, hatches closed, using panoramic thermal sights and displays, which is a big change for troops used to peering out of the older scout platforms like the CVRT with periscopes. Now in terms of protection and mobility, Ajax is at the top end of vehicles for its class. It weighs fairly chunky, around 38 tons, with the growth to 42 tons, and features modular armour that can withstand blasts and medium caliber fire. It's far better protected than the tiny 8-ton scimitar that it replaces, and indeed one of the reasons for its troubles was the challenge of packing so much into a relatively compact chassis. Ajax MTU diesel engine, which is 800 horsepower, has an advanced suspension system attached to it, giving it a top speed of around 70 km/h on roads. That's pretty impressive. During trials, crews have driven Ajax through muddy fields, rocky terrain, and Arctic snow. And, speaking to those troops that went to Sweden, despite the freezing conditions, the vehicle performed very, very well. Troops testing the vehicle have praised its onboard comfort as well, which, once the fixes were in place, and the digital ergonomics, though it's worth noting that learning to operate such a complex machine has been a bit of a journey in itself. The crews are not used to this digitalization. The crews I've spoken to have said it does get a little getting used to operating a vehicle not with periscopes and the manual configurations of that of Warrior and Scimitar, because that's what they're used to and have been used to for a very long time. Soldiers from units receiving Ajax have had to undergo huge training packages to fully utilize the sensors and the electronic architecture. Essentially, Ajax is intended as the eyes and the ears of the armed brigades, able to scout ahead, finding the enemy, and indeed fight if necessary. Yet, for all the promise, Ajax will have to prove itself in service to truly shake off this past. The army is integrating Ajax alongside other new equipment, namely the Boxer, which I have a huge respect for, which is the mechanized infantry vehicle, and of course the upcoming Challenger 3 tanks being upgraded to form the transformed, quote, future soldier force by 2030. The next few years will see Ajax units working up their tactics and ironing out remaining kinks. On paper, the troubles of the past have been somewhat solved by design modifications. Data from testing is fairly encouraging though. Over 167 battlefield test missions run, 41,000 kilometers driven, and 5,000 rounds fired without major incident. It's a dramatic improvement from the darker days, but there's still a lot more to come. How does she stack up though against similar reconnaissance and infantry fighting vehicles among Britain's allies? It's useful to compare many NATO countries faced with the same challenge, replacing the Cold War era armoured vehicles with modern, digital, battle-ready platforms. Britain's answer was Ajax, a tailor-made solution with lots of new tech. Other nations took different approaches, each with pros and cons, and helped put Ajax's saga into perspective. Let's talk about the wonderful CV90. You all know I absolutely love it, but this has been designed as a tracked IFV, not as a designated reconnaissance platform, but it is one of the closest alternatives to Ajax, and in fact BAE Systems' CV90 was the rival contender when Britain was deciding on a new reconnaissance vehicle back in 2010. The CV90 has served with multiple European armies, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands and more, and built an extremely solid reputation for reliability and combat performance. It's a bit smaller than Ajax and typically carries a squad of infantry in the back, something Ajax's turreted variant does not. Ajax has a crew of 3 and room for only 1 extra passenger. In terms of firepower, the newer CV90 marks a 30mm, 35 or 40mm gun, depending on the customer, so they're comparable in armament. CV90s have been battle tested in Afghanistan and elsewhere, and over the decades BAE has incrementally improved the design to better the armour and model electronics. In short, it's a very mature platform. However, there's a bit of a flip side. CV90 of course has been proven, but it is somewhat still of a general design, older, dating back to the 1990s. Critics say that to meet British requirements, the CV90 would have to be significantly upgraded in itself, potentially adding cost and complexity. I would disagree. I've seen the upgraded variants of CV90 and I think it's quite comparable to take an old platform and be able to configure it in such a way where CV90's, customization is huge and vast in what can be given as to what they need. As one competitor and commentator quipped, the CV90's basic version lacked the digitized network sophistication that the British Army sought. I completely disagree. Let's look next at Puma, Germany's latest infantry fighting vehicle. The Puma provides another illuminating comparison. Like the Ajax, the Puma was an ambitious project to give a mechanized brigade cutting-edge capability. And ironically, just like the Ajax, it ran into serious growing pains. The Puma is a heavily armoured IFV, crew of 3 plus 6 infantry equipped with a 30mm automatic cannon and sophisticated armour and active protection systems. It entered service in the 2010s after long deployment and development. Initially hailed as one of the most advanced IFVs in the world, the Puma infamously suffered a PR disaster in December 2022 when during a NATO exercise all of the 18 participating Puma vehicles broke down due to various malfunctions, and I did do a video on that situation. The German Defense Ministry's assessment at the time was telling that Puma offered, quote, superior capabilities, unquote, in principle, but was too prone to failure for actual operations. The faults range from trivial loose connections to severe turret control failures and even onboard fires, calling into question the Puma's reliability. Germany halted orders of the Puma and reactivated the old Armada IFVs until fixes were in place. Since then, the manufacturers have worked extensively to correct these issues, and by mid-2023, Germany announced the Pumas have been repaired and upgrades will continue. Sound familiar? The parallels to Ajax are striking. Both programs underestimated the challenge of integrating new tech, and both had moments where soldiers and politicians just lost faith. The difference is Germany's Pumas were already in unit service, and problems hit, whereas Britain basically caught the Ajax issues before full deployment. Puma's saga continues to show that even NATO allies' newest vehicles can stumble, and today Puma is back on track. Germany still plans to upgrade the whole fleet and its capabilities, like advanced optics and unmanned turrets, high protection, etc. For Ajax, seeing the Puma's troubles and recovery is almost vindicating. Britain wasn't alone in facing the pitfalls of modern airfield development. The lesson? High-tech armoured vehicles are hard to get right whether you're in Berlin or in London. Beyond these, other NATO nations are upgrading or replacing their scout and infantry fighting vehicles too. The United States is next on the block, as they are still using the M2 Bradley, a 1980s IFV which is strewn with its own controversy for cavalry scouting and in heavy units, but plans to field a new optionally manned fighting vehicle by the late 2020s. Italy and Spain use variants of the Italian Dardo and the Australian Spanish Ascod, which is usually the base platform for Ajax was being derived from, and each country balances its cost, risk and capability differently. What's clear is that the information supremacy on the battlefield is paramount. Modern recon vehicles like Ajax, Puma, CV90 and potentially even the Jaguar are not just troop carriers or light tanks, but mobile sensor hubs designed to find the enemy first and share data instantaneously, particularly around identification of things like drones. In that regard, I would say that now Ajax is working as intended. It will give the British Army a tremendous boost in capability, catching up with and in some ways leapfrogging the capabilities allies are fielding. With all the technical fixes largely in place, the question remains though, has Ajax's reputation been salvaged? In truth, many observers still remain cautious, including myself, particularly when talking to some of the crew. Adopting a wait-and-see attitude, I think, is the way to go here. Years of negative press have left a mark that will take some time for Ajax to outgrow the stigma. However, within the British Army, one senses relief and guarded optimism. Soldiers who have started training on Ajax often come from units they used with the tiny aging scimitars, and as much as I love scimitar, I actually got to play with them at the Aquino Tank Weekend with the Canadian Tank Museum, proudly sponsored by Steel Aces, the tank video game. You should go check out their website below. It's a really fun little tank battle game that they've just released. They're in closed beta. If you want to go check them out, I'd strongly encourage you to do so. But I was able to kind of climb all over scimitars and get some memory back of when I used scimitar in the British Army, both in Afghanistan and in Germany, and they're a great platform, but it's nice to finally have some modern kit for the troops, and they're tempered by an understanding that they must operate it correctly to avoid issues that could occur if they come across, a near-peer or peer-to-peer force. Army leaders have stressed that safety is now a top priority, and during recent trials, crews were explicitly told to halt if they had any health concerns, and apparently all proceeded without incident. This indicates far more caution in testing than the earlier days, a cultural shift that I think has been spurred by those injuries that occurred, and I do take my hats off a little bit to the British Army for doing that, but also I take my hat off and massive respect to the crews that unfortunately were involved with those injuries. So as we wrap up, a bit of a conclusion and outlook here, where do we stand now with Ajax? Well, as you as a community, I'd love to hear your input on this. Maybe you've done your own research, your own discussions and learning about this platform. But after a journey of nearly 15 years, this troubled armoured vehicle has finally reached a point of delivering combat-ready vehicles and machines to the British Army. The early development nightmares, the blaring noise, the gut-churning vibration, the injured crews and the scathing reports have all been accounts that I feel have somewhat been addressed and somewhat resolved through engineering changes and relentless testing. It's no longer, quote, a ghost program that failed to deliver anything deployable, and soldiers are training in it. In many ways, it's a significant success that the vehicle wasn't cancelled outright and has seemingly overcome its core flaws. Let's be honest, it doesn't matter how much money you spend on something, programs can be cancelled. Look at the Booker. The capability it offers, a fast, well-armed, digitally integrated scout, is one of the British Army's urgently needed vehicles for modern combat, and I really do respect that the MOD in the UK have really pushed to making a platform for just them and not sharing across other countries. If Ajax lives up to its promise on the next couple of years, it could be vindicating that the faith should have been kept in the program, and I myself will eat my hat a little bit. However, it's also clear that Ajax will carry that scar of its troubled birth for a while. The Army must work hard to integrate it smoothly and demonstrate reliability in field conditions. Every time an Ajax is out on exercise or display, observers will be watching very keenly. Is it performing as advertised? Any serious mishap would risk a "I told you so" from critics, and I'm not one to really say that. I'm not a subject matter expert, I'm not an armoured SME, but on the other hand, a string of solid performances could gradually rewrite this narrative, and I'm trying to start that today. The poor reputation Ajax earned was not under-deserved, but reputations can improve with transparency and results. As one defence journalist noted after years of calls to abandon it, quote, "Those problems appear to be finally behind the vehicle," unquote. In the eyes of many, Ajax has moved from being a byword for failure to a test case for recovery. In context, Britain's experience with Ajax kind of reflects the broader challenge of military modernisation as a whole. High-tech equipment is very expensive and extremely risky, particularly in the political and social environments that we're in today. But armies feel the risk is worth it to avoid being outmatched. Allies like Germany and others have had their own stumbles, as I had mentioned, and they have too doubled down to fix rather than abandon their advanced vehicles. For the British Army, the value of Ajax will ultimately be proven when it's deployed with the frontline units providing that edge in reconnaissance and surveillance that was promised. If it can do that, soldiers will likely come to trust and even love the platform, as often happens once initial issues fade to memory. If not, well, the criticism will surely return. For now, a fair assessment is that Ajax has improved significantly from its low point, but it has to improve more to fully shake off its poor reputation. It's no longer the utter disaster it was once labelled, yet calling it an unequivocal success would be a premature statement until it's battle tested. The story of Ajax is certainly not over, but this new chapter is far more hopeful and pleasant than the last. As it stands today, Ajax is set to join the British Army's ranks at last, not as a cautionary tale, but as a capable workhorse, albeit one of a few dents from the journey. Time will tell if it can truly vindicate itself into service. So thank you for watching and staying with me through this deep dive into the Ajax program. If you found this informative, please like the video and consider subscribing for more defense and technology insights. Feel free to leave me a comment. Do you think Ajax will end up a success story, or will its troubled past shadow it for years to come? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay informed and take care, folks. Bye-bye.